The 1940 years opened with the world on fire as total war mobilized nations and turned science into strategy. Radar, code breaking, mass aviation, and the first digital computers emerged beside penicillin and wartime plastics. Ingenuity that could heal and harm at once. In 1945, the atom announced itself in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, inaugurating the atomic age and a new calculus of power. Out of the ruins came institutions and alignments: the United Nations, Bretton Woods finance, the early Cold War, and NATO's 1949 seed, while decolonization began from India to Indonesia. In culture, existentialism from Sartre and Camus, Italian neorealism, and abstract expressionism struggled to make meaning after catastrophe. Meanwhile, battlefields, famine, and reconstruction devoured timber, fuel, and wildlife. Industrial fleets scoured the seas, and pesticides such as dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane spread across fields. Whales were hunted in record numbers even as the International Whaling Commission formed in 1946. And 1948 saw the International Union for Conservation of Nature created, the first fragile architecture of global conservation. Yet habitats shrank, migratory routes broke, and local extirpations multiplied, largely uncounted amid the noise of victory and the hurry of rebuilding. The decade closed in a strange brightness, an age named for the atom, whose shockwave ran far beyond cities, out across forests and oceans, toward extinction's widening edge.
Sugar Spoon was a Cumberland, Tennessee river endemic, a unit adapted to the swift, rocky shoals of medium to large rivers in the southeastern United States. By the early 20th century it had slipped from view, with no verified live individuals thereafter, a disappearance consistent with the broader regional collapse of shoal-dwelling mussels. Its decline was driven by habitat loss, culminating in the eradication of the last known Holston River population when Cherokee Dam closed in 1940. The International Union for Conservation of Nature later formalized its fate as extinct on the 2000 Red List. The lesser Akealoa of Hawaii Island was a yellow-washed honey creeper, light olive in the wings, with a remarkably slender bill about 2 inches long, an instrument for precision work in the canopy. It gleaned beetles and caterpillars from bark and leaves, but also probed lobeliads blossoms for nectar, dusting its forehead with pollen and shuttling it between flowers. Introduced mosquitoes brought avian malaria and other pathogens to elevations the native birds once used as refuges, a disease pressure to which honey creepers like the Akealoa had little resistance. At the same time, deforestation and forest degradation eroded the birds' foraging grounds and nesting cover, tightening the ecological vice. Last reported in 1940 and now listed as extinct, its disappearance is attributed to the combined effects of habitat loss and mosquito-borne disease. The Cascade Mountain wolf was the cinnamon-toned gray wolf of the Pacific Northwest and recognized in classic treatments by Richardson. 19th and early 20th century predator control, formal bounty systems, widespread poisoning and government campaigns pushed the population into steep decline. In Oregon Territory, wolf meetings, as early as 1843, set bounties explicitly to eradicate wolves. By around 1940, Fuscus had been eliminated from its United States strongholds, an extirpation reflected in historical wildlife records and later syntheses. Accordingly, modern summaries list the Cascade Mountain wolf as extinct, its disappearance driven principally by sustained hunting and control programs. The Las Vegas dace was a small leuciscid minnow confined to the artesian springs and outflows of the Las Vegas Valley. It occupied shallow, clear runs and vegetated springbrooks until intensive groundwater pumping and urban expansion dropped the water table and dried the springs. Specimens were last collected in 1940, and no verified records followed as the original spring complex failed in the early 60s. The International Union for Conservation of Nature subsequently formalized its status as extinct in 1986, and NatureServe lists the species as globally presumed extinct. Its fate underscores a broader pattern in desert spring biotas. Once hydrology is replumbed, endemics with pinprick ranges have nowhere else to go. The Javan lapwing, a tall, rangy plover, once coursed over steppe-like marshes of Java, favoring river deltas and damp swales tucked behind coastal dunes, with historical strongholds split between the island's northwest littoral and its southeastern shore. As wetlands were drained or converted for agriculture and disturbance intensified, hunting pressure compounded the damage, unraveling the species' already localized populations. The last accepted records date to 1940, and repeated searches failed to verify any survivors despite occasional local reports. This was a conspicuous bird. Its prolonged absence across known sites is therefore especially telling. The Arabian ostrich ranged across northern Arabia into the Levant, a slightly smaller, paler counterpart to North Africa's red-necked ostrich. Its presence is etched into regional memory. At Graffiti Rock near Riyadh, a mother strides with 11 chicks, a prehistoric vignette that feels almost documentary. Hebrew scripture cast the ostrich as a moral foil. Job 39 and Lamentations 4 invoke her neglectful nesting, as observers grappled with a desert giant adapted to harshness. After the rise of Islam, the camelbird signified status. Elites hunted it, and eggs, feathers, and leather were traded widely, with a Tang account marveling that men could ride its powerful back. Demand was long-standing. Roman Venetians and cookery took their toll, and by the modern plume trade its Arabian feathers were prized as superior millinery stock. The coup de grace came with rifles and motor vehicles, which turned pursuit across the Nafud and Syrian desert into efficient killing. By the early 20th century the subspecies was already scarce. Many authorities treated it as gone by about 1941, though scattered reports persisted, culminating in a dying bird found near Wadi al-Hassa in 1966. Today its story lingers in rock art and texts, and reintroduction attempts using North African stock in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the Negev testify both to what was lost and to ongoing efforts to restore a vanished emblem of the region. The Xerces blue, an iconic denizen of San Francisco's coastal dunes, was first described in 1852 and is remembered for its chalky lavender uppersides and bold white spotting beneath. It was a dietary specialist. Caterpillars depended on lotus, while adults also visited lupinus, a combination that left the lineage tightly bound to intact, sandy dune flora. As urbanization leveled, stabilized, and fragmented the dune field, host lotus vanished from disturbed soils, severing the larval food chain and precipitating a swift local collapse. The last verified individuals were taken near Lobos Creek by the Presidio in 1941, and the species is now listed as extinct. Museum Genomics has since confirmed the butterfly as a distinct species, and its elegy continues to shape conservation, most visibly in 2024 efforts to restore dune function at the Presidio using a closely related, surrogate, silvery blue. The Texas gray wolf ranged across southern and western Texas into northeastern Mexico, a dusky-toned wolf sometimes treated as intergrading with neighboring lineages but long recognized in classic North American taxonomies. Skulls showed a notably arched frontal region, and historical accounts describe animals within a broad gray wolf mass of 34 to 45 kilograms, consistent with Texas agency summaries. As native ungulates and other prey were depleted, wolves increasingly turned to livestock, inflaming conflict and intensifying government and settler-led control campaigns. The last widely accepted record is a wolf shot by Nelson Elliott at the Cleveland Ranch on April 12, in 1942, often cited as the end of the native Texas gray. Afterward, only the Mexican wolf persisted briefly along the borderlands before being extirpated from Texas by 1970. Today this wolf is remembered as a casualty of sustained persecution layered atop ecological simplification across the southern plains and desert rim. Chapin's crombec was a diminutive, short-tailed warbler confined to the montane forests of the Lendu Plateau in northeastern Democratic Republic of Congo, an insular range that made it exquisitely vulnerable to landscape change. Known from only a handful of specimens and last recorded in 1942, it has not been reliably encountered since, its silence coinciding with extensive deforestation and decades in which conflict curtailed surveys. Taxonomically it is now treated by many as a subspecies of the white-browed crombec, yet conservation accounts assess it as critically endangered and possibly extinct, given the tiny putative population and continuing habitat loss. Areocolon inundatum, a minute pipewort described by Moldenk and known only from coastal Senegal, was tied to a single locality and little more than a rosette of grass-fine leaves and low scapes. It was last scientifically collected in 1943, after which its only known habitat was destroyed by salt mining along the Senegalese coast. When the International Union for Conservation of Nature updated its Red List in 2020, the species was placed in the extinct category, formalizing a loss long foreshadowed by the disappearance of its site. Its story is a stark reminder that microendemic wetland plants, like many pipeworts adapted to saturated, shallow water soils, can vanish when a single, small habitat is reworked for resource extraction. The Cebu hanging parrot was a tiny, Cebu endemic colossus distinguished by a scarlet tail, faint red on the head, and a lightly golden-tinged nape and upper back. Females lacked the male's red throat patch, and the bird measured about 14 centimeters long. Cebu's near-total forest clearance in the late 19th to 20th centuries gutted lowland habitat and drove multiple endemics toward oblivion, and this subspecies slipped from the record accordingly. The last known captive line, wild birds taken in 1929, died out at the London Zoo in 1943, a date widely used as the terminal point for the taxon. Modern summaries therefore treat this subspecies as extinct from deforestation-driven habitat loss, even as the parent species remains assessed at the species level. The Barbary lion once threaded the Atlas and Rif, from Morocco across Algeria and Tunisia into the deserts and woodlands of the Maghreb, a northern lineage adapted to montane forests, scrub and arid steppe. Its decline accelerated with rifles, bounties, and organized eradication campaigns. Records show coastal and lowland losses by the 1830 years and a long retreat into remote massifs through the early 20th century. As prey thinned and the Sahara's aridification fragmented habitats, lions persisted at low density in small family groups, behaviorally still pride-forming, but demographically precarious. The last widely cited kill occurred in the High Atlas near Tizi Antичka in 1942, and by 1943 the lion had effectively vanished from Morocco's accessible ranges, with only unverified remnants lingering into the 50s. Fossils from Bismound Cave near Essaouira, dated to around 100,000 years, attest to how deep its roots once ran in North Africa, an evolutionary presence erased in mere generations. Captivity preserves echoes of that lineage. Medieval skulls from the Tower of London test as Barbary lions and the Moroccan royal lines in modern zoos have been studied and debated for their conservation value. Sifted hunting and sighting archives now suggest the very last wild pockets flickered out by the mid-60s, underscoring how persecution and desertification acted in concert across the Maghreb. And then there is the last photo, a 1925 aerial image of a lone lion striding away on a Moroccan slope, small against the earth, already receding, an indelible, sorrowful stanza closing the species' long poem in North Africa. The desert bandicoot was a small, rufous-orange paramelid with a long, fine muzzle, stiffer pelage and relatively long, tapering tail, features tuned to probing and digging in the hot sands of Central Australia. It favored spinifex dunes and sandplains where it scraped simple day nests under shrubs, emerging at night to leave neat conical pits while taking ants, beetle larvae and termites. Once widespread across remote parts of Western Australia, South Australia, and the Northern Territory, the lineage dwindled rapidly. The last confirmed specimen was collected on the Canning Stock Route in 1943. Its fall mirrors the broader fate of Australia's critical weight range mammals, driven chiefly by introduced predators, feral cats and red foxes, and by changed fire regimes that reshaped desert mosaics. What remains are study skins, field notes and stories of nocturnal foragers that once stitched Spinifex country with tiny funnels in the sand. The American ivory-billed woodpecker was a black and white giant of southern bottomland forests, about 50 centimeters long with a 75 centimeters wingspan, its bold neck stripes and broad white wing panels unlike any other North American woodpecker. In 1935 the Cornell team documented a small population in Louisiana's Singer Tract with the only universally accepted film and sound recordings, spotlighting the bird's dependence on old-growth swamp hardwoods. Relentless logging of the Singer Tract by Chicago mill and lumber combined with collecting and hunting, stripped the last secure refuge. James Tanner's census during the late 1930 years estimated just 22 to 24 birds across the southeast, with only 8 in the Singer Tract itself. The final universally accepted record came when Audubon artist Don Eccleberry observed and sketched a lone female at the Singer Tract in April 1944, as the forest was being cut over. Post-1944 claims have never yielded conclusive proof. Today the species is treated as possibly extinct. Eccleberry's quiet sketch of that last bird, holding to a dwindling sliver of forest, reads now like an epitaph for a creature undone by saws and gunfire. The Licon rail was a minute, flightless island rail with drastically reduced wings and tail and only 8 primaries, a morphology that traded flight for sprinting through beach grass and tussock. Endemic to Licon, a small refuge population was later established on Eastern Island, where the species persisted after Licon's fortunes turned. Rabbits introduced to Licon in the early 1900 years stripped the island's vegetation, converting it to a dust bowl and collapsing nesting cover and food resources for rails. Midway offered only a brief reprieve. Black rats arrived with wartime shipping in 1943 and quickly overran the islets, dooming the remaining birds. The last confirmed sighting came on Eastern Island in June 1944, a precise endpoint unusually well documented for an island rail. Its story distills a broader rule of oceanic biogeography. Flightless rails with tiny ranges are acutely vulnerable when habitat is transformed and alien mammals arrive. The Aruba Amazon, the arid-land form of the yellow-shouldered Amazon, vanished from Aruba by the mid-1940 years, its decline driven by shooting poisoning by fruit growers and intensive trapping for the pet trade. Contemporary and later accounts portray a bird tightly tied to dry thorn scrub and columnar cacti, a niche that left it highly exposed once persecution intensified and nestlings were commodified. Some authors have even questioned whether Canifrons was a stable subspecies or simply geographic variation within Amazon barbadensis, but either way Aruba lost its native parrots while the species persisted on Bonaire, Curaçao and coastal Venezuela. The Wake Island rail was a diminutive, flightless rail that threaded through Cordia subcordata scrub and beach tussocks, gleaning insects, mollusks, worms, seeds and even the contents of seabird eggs. On its rainless atoll it likely met water needs from prey and opportunistic pools. Numerous when Rothschild named it in 1903 and still common in the early 20th century, it nested in simple ground cups and foraged boldly at close range, a naivete typical of island rails. War engulfed the atoll after 1941, thousands of starving occupying troops hunted the birds intensively, while earthworks and bombardment shredded the tiny habitat. Analyses of museum skins and archival accounts converge on an extinction window of 1942 to 1945, with the last records from Midway's eastern island in June 1944 and the species treated as extinct by mid-decade. Its fate is emblematic of small, flightless rails everywhere, evolution specialists undone in a heartbeat when a whole island's cover is trampled and the calculus of survival changes overnight. The pallid beach mouse, known only from the dunes at Ponce Park and Bulow on Florida's Atlantic coast, was a pocket-sized rodent, just 6 centimeters long, that burrowed into loose coastal sands for refuge. As post-war development leveled and lit the four dunes, the native scrub-and-grass mosaic unraveled, and with it the specialized shelter and foraging space this mouse required. Contemporary accounts also point to added pressures from invasive rodents and free-ranging cats, compounding the effects of habitat loss on such a narrowly distributed subspecies. Last records are variously given as 1946, and the taxon is now treated as extinct in modern summaries. The Ash Meadows killifish once occupied a constellation of warm springs in Nevada's Ash Meadows, first described by Gilbert in 1893. After 1930 years' spring alterations, the tiny predator, omnivore, was overrun by introduced red swamp crayfish, mosquito fish, black mollies and bullfrogs, which preyed upon and competed with it at every life stage. The last verified records date to 1948, with extinction inferred in the early 50s. Modern accounts list the taxon as globally extinct. Its disappearance leaves Latos the genus's sole survivor, a reminder of how quickly spring ecosystems unravel once non-native predators are poured into closed desert waters. The Sinna parakeet was confined to Colombia's Sinna Valley, where it inhabited remnant dry forest foothills along the Caribbean slope. Known from just 18 historical specimens and last documented in 1949, it slipped from view as clearance for cattle ranching, farming, and illicit logging erased most of the region's seasonally dry forest. Contemporary accounts also implicate trapping and shooting in its decline, a familiar pressure on small neotropical parrots. Taxonomically, some treats it as a full species, whereas several checklists subsume it within the painted parakeet complex, an unsettled status that has not softened the conservation verdict. The BirdLife listing is now possibly extinct, and despite targeted searches in the 2000 years, no verified population has been relocated. The pink-headed duck was a distinctive river duck of the Gangetic lowlands, about 40 centimeters long, with males showing a uniquely rose-pink head, neck and bill, contrasting white-edged wings, and a peaked crown. Its stronghold lay north of the Ganges and west of the Brahmaputra in today's Bihar and adjoining regions, where it bred in lowland marshes and pools and tallgrass jungle. Its clutch of 6 or 7 nearly spherical, creamy white eggs is unusual among ducks. Drainage and conversion of wetlands for agriculture, amplified by year-round shooting and collecting, drove a steep decline through the early 20th century. The last widely accepted wild record was a male trapped on June 21, 1935 in Darbhanga district, Bihar, after which the species slipped from view. Because unconfirmed reports persisted, the International Union for Conservation of Nature Treatment classifies it as possibly extinct, rather than formally extinct. Either way, the pink-headed duck's elegy is written in drained marshes and silenced roosts, a bird once called unmistakable, lost as its tallgrass waters were plowed under.